What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab, Freddie Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with the Saturday Night Sit Down. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab, Freddie Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with a Saturday Night Sit Down. And tonight, I got the pleasure and honor of sitting down with Antoine Cottle. What's going on, my man?
How are you today, Freddie?
I'm blessed. I'm blessed, man. Like I said, man, I woke up this morning, man, so I'm blessed, right? It's always a good day, right?
That's what I think, man.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Well, man, thank you so much, man. I'm looking so forward to having this conversation with you because, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, I came across a video and, you were sharing a story of your time in the military. And from what it sounds like, I guess you had to fire off a mortar, right?
Yeah, it was basically an anti-tank missile. Yeah, the mortars were attached to it, so it's a totally different weapon system.
Gotcha. Okay, okay.
Yeah, still
I
dangerous
mean,
though.
yeah, no, I must believe it, yeah, and it was really, really just eye-opening, because as you're sharing that story and just seeing how it really affected you, and towards the end, as you started talking about how you try to justify it, right, and you just you just
Mhm.
don't, because then it just kind of makes it normal, and what really got to me is to me personally, like I say, for one. I am, anytime I see somebody who's a veteran or any type of symbolism like that, that I know they served some time in the military. I don't care when it was. I
Mhm.
take it a point to myself to go over and say, thank you, for what you've done. And when you said it to you, you said just it affects you differently, because like you said, we don't know what you really was going on over there. So that's really why I wanted to take you out because for me, I'm really wanting to be respectful, I mean, maybe out of disrespect and
Mhm.
not knowing or just out of my ignorance, to offend anybody, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to sit there and
Yeah,
talk to you about that.
yeah. But I do know that the offense itself, it really goes about the soldiers' protection of that organization. You know what I mean? That's basically where the offense within a veteran actually comes from because they do get offended. I've said some things to offend veterans in the past, but when it comes down to it, they basically, if you touch on something that they haven't confronted yet, that's more likely the thing that's going to get them, that's going to eat
Yeah.
at them and bother them. You know, in a sense.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
it's like, yeah, nothing really offends me nowadays, but I still accept the thanks. It's really is just a matter of not thanking me for who I was attached to, rather than what I learned about myself. Basically, is what it comes. Thanks for you learning about yourself because you could have turned into a monster. Things like that. So it's like I'll take it like that. That's how I take the thank yous. But yeah, they're just a big old mafia, militarized mafia. That's all they really truly are in the whole scheme of things.
yeah, man. I know it's kind of sad what's going on, and it's sad how they you use these people as pawns, right? These kids are coming in and trying to learn, and promises to go to schooling and all this. And even one of my cousins, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
actually a Marine, and I remember years ago when I was actually thinking about joining, right? And I called him up and I asked him, and I'm like, I'm thinking about joining and stuff, and he said, so why do you want to join? And I told him, I was like, really, man? Because I think I just want to go and maybe like force him to teach me discipline, right? And get the discipline out of it. And he looked at me, he was like, yo, don't do it. If that's what you're going for, don't do it. And I never really pressed why or asked anything more than that. I just took his word for it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you've been out there, and he was actually, I think it was in Afghanistan or Iraq over there, and he was in a tank, and they went over a mine, and it blew up, and they were sent home. So that's how he got his time out of there, and I don't really ask much about it, and
Yeah.
like I said, because you don't know what's going to confront. Like I said, like I was telling you before, I have a friend of mine who talks about anything, but when we talk, be like, hey, there's certain things that I'm not going to talk about when it comes to that, and I respect it.
Sure.
I don't know what you've seen, I don't know what you're going through, and we got to be respectful, and then there's other times there's other people who need to talk about that or maybe got to that point like for you. So I guess one of my questions when it comes to that, how does someone get to that point, right, to be able to confront and deal with that? Is there like something that you think that you come with a pattern, or is it just a matter of time, or how can someone get from A to B with that?
Definitely a matter of time waiting for the effect. You know what I mean? I've noticed a good pattern for PTSD taking effect probably 3 to 5 years into the calm, like into the reintegration, to getting civilized and all that. About 3 to 5 years in, it seems like that's when it really starts to present itself. And only way that I could think of people really confronting this stuff is not to act out of fear. It seems like it's really all tied into the fear that sneaks in our lives every day. You know what I mean? The intimidations, the little hesitations in life, that there's fear attached to all that. And I honestly think the only way to get deep down into it, to confront those things, are to eliminate fear. And I don't mean don't think about fear. I mean freaking eliminate it. Like it's a damn battle. Fear is powerful. Fear is very powerful.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it's because when you come to fear, like you don't want to succumb to that, right? Or let it control you. Like as I'm trying to think about fear is the pros and cons, right? I don't think it's not meant to stop you, but kind of to keep you safe in a sense, right? Your fear keeps
Yeah.
you alert, like kind of you once you have that sense of fear, right? Like your sense of hearing kind of goes up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you get kind of more keen and you're more present in those things. So it's more of a defense mechanism to keep you at alert, right? So, but you have to understand that, right? Like don't react to it.
Yeah.
Understand what that fear is and use it to your
Mhm.
advantage.
Once the senses, once they don't have a filter to filter out things, that's when the madness starts to happen. That's when that takes place, because all the senses are picking up heightened forms of the information that's relevant to a past situation. And I rely on the eyes. I rely on my vision, visual and non-visual. Like there's two different lenses that people tend to have but don't normally use. Same with the sense of smell. Like there's happy smells, and then there's like smells that signify danger.
Yeah.
There's sounds, you know, good sounds that don't, spike any eardrum flapping. But then there's crazy sounds that send a high vibration into the. It's all like there's two different lenses for each sense, and so it gets real tricky for a lot of people, really tricky. But it's about filtering through those senses and like literally picking them up and just looking at everything that comes through.
Yeah.
So
So, it's a lot to go into. And I know another part that you were saying about that story was, talking about the river there, right? And just like how all the sins in the world of everything kind of go into this river. And I kind of related that to them in a sense because for me, like I love thunderstorms. I love heavy rains and things like that. And to me, I've always like signified it that, it's coming at a time like there's so much negativity in the world, right? That it's kind of God's way or the upper being's way of kind of like washing the world of its sins. You know what I mean? Kind of just like cleansing everything. And then the way you said it, I'm like, man, if once it's being cleansed and then all this water is going to this one place of all that negativity, what you're saying here. So like, what is it about? Like, if you could just tell me a little more, like, what is it seeing there? Like, what type of like negativity or what was that presence being there?
well, I mean, we brought a lot of the negativity with us because we were all young. So I would say that the real the intensity of the negativity probably took place in Fallujah. Um, Fallujah was fine. Fallujah was calm. It was nothing wrong with Fallujah. But for some reason, all of us being there feeling the way we were already at that point, this was before the firefights, and like I don't know, man. They didn't like the way that we were. They didn't like us being there, and then all of a sudden, when it was time for us to leave Fallujah after doing all sorts of missions, on foot, we left the Marines there, and then that's when Fallujah became known as Fallujah. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it wasn't always the madhouse that it seemed to be on the news. It wasn't like that until my unit went there. And I hope I'm framing the answer right, but that's probably the biggest form of negativity that I've seen shift everything around it without even really seeing it happen. Um, and it was they were throwing rocks at us. Um, there was a 50 cal that on the turret on the truck. They basically laid out rounds on the entire crowd, and it's like they were just protesting. That's all they were doing. And our Delta company basically like just unloaded stuff. And I wondered like why did they maybe they got some policy or some procedure that they're used to that I mean just forms of negativity. It is really all over the place. It's really all over speckled, all over it like pepper.
So I think it's just like that. I guess that's from the sounds of it is just a lot of things in like your missions took place over there, and then that's where that all
Mm-hmm.
that just negative. You can't associate it with anything positive. You know what I mean? You're just there against
Not
fighting
really.
doing things that you didn't want to do. Like, and I know how terrifying, like you said, to second guess yourself. In the middle of a command, is no joke, right? Like, you need to
Yeah.
be quick on your feet so that's
Yep. You might need that 1 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like the hesitation, I admit, was messed up. Like that's why I have a Purple Heart because I made a couple minor mistakes that costed me a lot. Like if I didn't, feel necessary to sleep on the roof, I wouldn't have got blown up by the grenade in my sleep. Stuff like that. You know, but to hand somebody a medal for messing up, that's made no sense to me. It made no sense. It's like, hold on, I did what I wasn't supposed to do because well, that's what y'all said to do in training. Don't do that. Don't fall asleep in a freaking war zone exposed. I did that, got consequented from it, and was given a medal for it. Let that roll around for 15, 16 years. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it was a dog and pony show. My unit was a little bit different. It was,
I mean, again, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's kind of like I'm thinking of this, like you're seeing like a Purple Heart. It's almost like a consolation prize, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like a participation trophy. Like, hey, you were here, you did something. And maybe that's kind of another way of kind of getting in your head, right? Like, hey, I got an award, man, and I still messed up like I did, to try to continue to stay or, re-enlist or whatever. And again, like I didn't serve, and I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to be like talking nonsense, but just
I thank you for not serving. That's what I'm thanking you for. I thank you for that because I mean I don't know how this conversation would go if you had have joined as well. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
no, awesome, awesome. Well, and again, and we'll talk more about that and later on. But it's
So,
just the things that and because of those things that I've seen in you, right, in that story, and even talking to you beforehand, was just letting me know that this person has a lot of things that I can see, right, and relate with, and that conscience, like that, like if I put myself in your shoes and thinking about that, and I had to make that decision and just not feeling under threat, like I know I would have second guessed myself. Like I wanted to be, I thought it was going to be a doctor. And I was like, man, the thought if I were to be a doctor trying to help somebody and I'm trying to save their life, and let's say I don't, right? Because it's going to happen, right? I'm not going to save everybody's life. And even just the thought of that was like, oh my God, like even though I'm trying to save this person and they died and because of my hands, I would be driven to drink. You know what I'm saying? Like to be sit there and like how I don't know how to live with myself. Like you can't,
yeah.
actually, you know what, man? And it just dawned on
Mm-hmm.
me with my dog, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I had him for 11 years, and he got
Okay.
really, really sick out of nowhere, and he got to the point where he wasn't even able to get out of his bed to go to the bathroom, right? And at that point, I was like, I gotta put him down, you know. And I made that
Yeah.
decision, and it haunts me to this day, man. Like for months when it happened, I literally went into a shutdown. I didn't know how to deal. Like I felt like I had to be strong in front of my family because I didn't want them to see me breaking down because I didn't want them to break down. And I buried it so deep that I was cleaning pools that summer. And
Mm-hmm.
one day I was at one cleaning one pool, and I literally just broke down. I literally just dropped to my knees, curled up into a ball, and just started crying hysterically, like I killed my dog, like I took his life, like I made that decision. And and that's and again, not to like again compare a human life to that, but that was my boy, that was my first son, So
No,
with
it's
that,
definitely comparable.
like
Definitely comparable.
I'm scarred for that. So I can't imagine, like you said, and then the blink about to make a decision, like, hey, it's them or me. You know what I mean? And you don't even know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen. And now you have to see, like, hey, I made this decision. Like, I gotta live with
Yes.
this, and I don't
Like the
know.
result is still the result.
Right.
Like whether it's through compassion or through anger or through survival. If that's the end state, it's gonna hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's a
For whatever
limit that
reason.
yeah, that's a limit of human nature. Don't it doesn't really get conditioned that to that extent. It's not baseline in society for us to having experiencing this,
Right.
and so it gets kooky. Like most people, like they're supposed to be locked up in the cage for doing things like this, and it's like that was another thing that I really had to pick apart because it was like if felt like I got away with something. You know what I mean? So it was like and I mentioned all sorts of things over the years. I talked to myself over it, but really it was just like feels like I just did something wrong and never got penalized for it. And
Well, the
that was
worst part
probably the
about it.
main, huh?
Well, let's say I think the worst part about it is that you think about like, oh, you didn't get penalized for it, but
Mm-hmm.
what I would think is actually you did, right? You got to live with it. The worst part about it is you're in your own head creating your own consequences, right? Like we are our own worst enemies, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the harder part to that is like some people are able to in their minds disassociate that or and in the Spanish term we say like tener sangre fría, have cold blood, be cold blooded, right? Like just deal with
Mm-hmm.
it, not bat an eye, And then the other of us, like you said, like yourself, and many others, is that you kind of constantly relive that. You torture yourself with it every day. You relive that, and you got to face that in your, and there's nobody who can help you with your own inside your own head. You know what I mean? Like you're
No,
all by
no,
yourself.
no. I think most of the things I think about just as my thoughts passing by, some of those things will give people nightmares. You know what I mean? Like it's like the view that I had on the dark part of the world, like the view that I had was it just felt front and center. You know what I mean? Like if I hadn't turned around and seen people behind me in any situation, metaphoric or not, I wouldn't know I was there with anybody. You know what I mean? Because it was like so front and center. It had my focus just as much as it had my focus on here, like on this call. So it's like the more we ignore things, the more we ignore the fact that we physically did do something like this,
Mhm.
every reason to tell us that we shouldn't feel bad about it will actually cause us to feel bad.
Right.
It gets stuffed away in this little shadow box inside of our subconscious and builds until there's no lid anymore. And then it just pops.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened to me too. Like, I tried to go through it and justify it as much and kind of like ignore the fact and not really deal with what actually just happened, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself like, oh, I made the right choice, right? Like he wasn't gonna be able to do that, but then part of it is just like, man, like the medical cost of having whatever surgeries or whatever needs to, and now
Mm-hmm.
my son was about to be born, my wife was pregnant, about to give. It was crazy because we put him down, right, and then a
Mm-hmm.
week later, my wife gave birth to my son.
Mm-hmm.
So that was even a harder transition too because my dog was my first one because I got him and I didn't well, at the point where I didn't even think I could have kids, right? Like I was going to this post, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a dog, this is my son, and I treated him as such. I didn't put him on a leash, nothing like that. Like he swore he was a human person, like getting in the world,
Yeah.
that's how much of my boy he was. So
Mm-hmm.
then, it was kind of a weird transition to lose him and then to gain my son. It was a really hard pill for me to swallow. It was just a very, very difficult time. And as I said, that was just one instance, right? Like I can't imagine,
Yeah.
like that. And that's like I said, why we connect and I can see that. So, like I said, part of
Mm-hmm.
my show is I want to sit down with different men, right, who have, great characteristics and qualities that I see in myself that I want to pass on to the younger generation, the other kids, right? As we know in our community, a lot of our kids grow up without a father or without great,
Yeah.
positive male role models, or people who've been through things that can teach them the right way, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I
Oh
see a whole
yeah.
lot of great qualities in you just in that little clip, and I wanted to sit down and talk to you. So, for starters, for you, like I always ask everyone else, for you, what do you think some of the main qualities or characteristics it takes to be a good person or a good man?
Um, we'll start with a person. We'll go male, female. Like the whole of a human. I think that person would have to be. They would have to find an inner balance with uh, the power they wield and the love that they feel. There has to be an awareness to that. Um, because when we act out of love, we say that love is power, but just in reality, when love is shown, technically it looks different throughout the entire world. Love looks different. It looks like a lot of different things.
Yes.
So it can't be a power. It's something in itself. Power is power. You know what I mean? Power, the desire, the passion, the ambition side of things. Not so much nurturing and empathy and compassion. But when they lie in an individual on only one part, there's always going to be an imbalance. It's like people cannot be too loving or too powerful in itself. It has to be both. It has to be that powerful form. I think it's expression because I never used to talk. I had a talking problem when I was just coming up. I think I just learned how to talk like 5, 6 years ago, truly. And you know, for me, I feel like I can get that across through verbal expression. I can balance the love part and the power part, the understanding and the ambition. I can see those two halves working at the same time. So as far as the human goes, there has to be a balance of the heart, and we'll call it the body. You know what I mean? Like there's this counterbalance between what's inside and what's outside that a human is baseline better off being. Now, as far as a good man goes, obviously the society is masculine. Um, that male energy, it's even in women. They carry this power that doesn't allow them to see the love side. So now it's like crisscrossing between is it love or power or male or female? But they're a male, they're going to act like a male. But no, they can act like a male all they want. But if that male energy isn't showing up in a loving format, I wish I can truly put it in plain, simple English. But it's the love has to come out at the same time. That's what the American society is lacking.
I think what
And
you're really saying is like the yin and yang of everything, right? Like, I mean,
that I'm trying to simplify that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
within yourself, like you meet a partner, right? And you have to maintain yourself, right? And keep yourself whole because that's why they fell in love with you, right? Like, I love
Mm-hmm.
my wife because of her independence. That's how strong she is. If she were to
Mm-hmm.
lose that independence, then it's just like, I don't want you to change. I want you to stay that. I want you to keep that part of you, right? Don't change because of me, but let's grow
Right.
together and still love.
Right.
And then that's where, like, I think you're getting, like, you finding that balance of the
Mm-hmm.
power and the love and that within the relationships, right?
Yep. And then having that dependency rely on one or the other, love or power, like it can't work. You can't say I'm going to love this person because I feel whole, or I'm going to stay with this person because they make me feel powerful. There's somewhere in between some counterbalance that's supposed to take effect, and the lack of self awareness is actually what's stopping it. It's stopping people, humans, male and female, from seeing how they work, how the inside of themselves work. It's a whole nother world on the inside. I wish
Yeah.
everybody would truly
Yeah.
be in it
Yeah.
because that's where the answers are.
It was a lot. I used to always and I said this like recently, right? Like the last 6 years, like when I lost my job and everything, and I'm married, I had my kids, and my friends and everything, like your childhood friends, everybody's kind of going off and doing their own thing, right? So at the end of the day, I was realizing, man, I'm on my own, right? I got to figure out how to do for my family. I got to figure out how to do, for myself and all these things. And it really forced me to look at myself because, like I said, well, many, many times, like growing up, I tried to adapt to everybody else, right? To try to fit in and do those things and, to be in that circle, right? Because I always felt
Yeah.
weird or out of place. And then now that I'm grown, like a lot of times I'm sitting here, I'm like, yo, am I doing this because I really like it, or did I really convince myself to like this behavior, and really need to have that? And I always said, like, one of my quotes I said to all my friends, like, listen, man, my mind is a very, very scary place, man. Even I don't want to be there sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just need to escape. But you need to, like you said, really find that self awareness and be whole with yourself, because once you really accept who you are and you understand what makes you tick and how you work, life is a lot more liberating, a lot easier to go through.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to see it for what it is. Um, and honestly, sometimes to me, it looks like it looks like there's a lot of men that are walking around in the dark, almost just bumping in the walls, just not really seeing the things that they're progressing on as it's coming. It's like sometimes, I mean, maybe just because Las Vegas is such a weird city, um, but I don't even know if there's such thing as manhood anymore. At one point, there was a certain idea behind being the man, but it seems like everybody has a problem with it. And so there's something going on with manhood. I just can't. I'm not really aware of that world like that because I kind of took it as a whole. Like I had to understand both sides of it for me. So it's like I just kind of skipped over that part. It's I got a few manly jobs, but really nothing too diverse about how to be a man as a man who never had a dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
but that goes back
it's
to like what you're saying too, like because you said with the women, right? Be having that masculinity, and I think it comes to that because, and we see it time and time again, right? Guys who, eh, and part of this, I want to understand guys to know, if you want to be a dad, right? You become, you're doing the actions to do that stuff. You're gonna be a father, right? Like it's, and you got to be there, right? Like it's not a matter, it's not a game, it's not a joke, man. Like this is somebody's life involved, right? So what happens is these guys get up and maybe they just walk away, right? Or they get locked up because they're living in this gang life or get killed or whatever reason, and they're not present, right? What happens is that a lot of these women have to play that role, right? These moms have to now put on these pants, right? And they're raising young ladies too. And these young ladies, they don't see a man in their house bringing the bills or paying this or getting things done or, what I mean? None of that. They see a woman doing it, right? They see their
yeah.
mom, So then it becomes that battle of, you know, well, when you're in a relationship with somebody of the opposite, the other gender stuff, there's, like we said, there's yin and yang, right? Like you got to have that balance. Like, we can't have the same energy, controlling a relationship. It's not going to work because we're constantly pushing each
Right.
other away, right? So
Yep.
we
That
have to
counter.
find that balance, what I mean? That yin and yang within us, what I mean? Like me and my wife, like I said too, what I love about it, we are total opposites, right? But we work, right? Because we want to work and we find that love and we understand each other and we try to do that. But I think that goes back to like you're saying, like where the I guess the traits of masculinity being in the women or seeing that, because again, too, even if you are a single mom raising a young man, then again, you're growing up as a little young boy, seeing your mom bringing in the bill, bringing in the bacon, taking these men out on
Yeah.
the joint, holding her, you know what I mean? Like, and doing all these
Yeah.
things that I guess traditionally a man would do, right? Or the guy would be if he's present in the home, right?
Right.
So I think that's what it calls all signs of that. And he's saying, what we said, those traits and characteristics coming up, but also I think, with being a good person or a good man is having key morals or things that we live by, right? So for
Yeah.
you, what are some of
Exactly.
your morals that you abide by on a day-to-day basis?
Oh shoot, morals. Um, I don't know. It seems like I develop morals as I encounter things in life. Because I kind of wiped all the old ones away and started from scratch. And so I would say the one that recurs the most is how do I feel about this, whatever this thing is. Like if I wake up, I'm grateful that my head finally came off the bed. Now for the next day, I can not worry about not waking up. You know what I mean? It's like, how am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling great about that. You know, I go to, it's like it's a matter of constantly checking in with ourselves. I went to massage school. That's the only way I would have known how to actually dance in and out like that. Because it was something about war and pain and suffering that pushed me to pretty much, resist that and gravitate more towards, life and creating and health and healing. And so with that, that's pretty much my dark and light, my yin and yang. Because ultimately it's those two parts of life when they came together made the most sense. More sense than family, more sense than whatever systems that are out there. It just made sense when I took my pain and my life, and put it together. So there's inner work to be done, and the way that I visualize it is like you say, you create your own reality. It's I'm causing this playing field to be workable by thinking of it. It's just a matter of fact of having the conviction, let's call it discipline, to call self-awareness a moral. That's what I do. It's the way that I live. It's the way that I think life should be for every individual, because if a person is unhappy as I used to be and feel happy now, self-awareness does something. You know what I mean? I'm breaking
Yes.
the here right now.
Yeah. No,
Self-awareness does something.
you know what is crazy? Like I went to, and how you breaking that teenage group? Really, I gotta go back. I think if you go on my page and go to like my YouTube channel and just go like to my older videos, those are my very first
Okay.
one when I had like this realization of like I think ultimate self was like yo, like everything just felt so clear. It was like a light switch just went off, and I don't know what it was, but I'm like yo, like and that's when I started my podcast. Like I have a vision, like I know what I need to do. Like I just feel like so like because I spent so long right trying to figure out my purpose, right, or trying to figure myself out of what I need to
Mm-hmm.
do, and when I finally found myself, right, and like who I'm being comfortable in my own skin. And for me, I think my ultimate thing was having my family, right, my wife and my kids, because I always wanted that unconditional love, right. So now I have my wife and
Mm-hmm.
my kids who love me unconditionally. I can be and do whatever and who I want to be, and I know I got three people right in my meat lives in that love me to death, and I don't need nothing
Yeah.
else. So I'm comfortable being myself. I'm comfortable going out being me. I'm comfortable doing the things that make me happy and doing that because I know I got people who are gonna love me regardless, right?
Yep.
So that is so important to me in that aspect. Now, when you said morals, right, and the thing that
Mm-hmm.
stood out to me, like you said, I wiped out my old morals to create new ones. Like, what was it that triggered you to do that, right? And how were you able to do that? To be like, yo, I need to abandon these morals and move forward, and not really use those to dictate your life anymore.
Yeah, because I went against so many of them. That's basically, there's a lot of things like in a biblical sense, the Ten Commandments were shot. All of them had holes in it. I couldn't even abide my life by something that was in stone as much as the Bible was, because I had done all of that wrong already.
Right.
I'm not even 21 years old at this point. And so it's like it just seemed like a good time to wipe it out and start over again with the person that I wanted to be or thought I can be better in some way. Like it was a matter of being able to move forward and accept that you might have been taught something that's not going to work anymore. It's human conditioning is pretty interesting. It really is. Um, we get programmed to think the program. It's just if we're thinking it, how much of our body is going to act it out before it looks like it's going against it. And so it's there's a moral that you're not supposed to steal from anybody, but in a sense, if those three people that stand in your corner that love you so freaking much are depending on you, I don't care what anybody says. They're going to do everything wrong to put food on the table. They're going to. I mean, they'd be stupid not to. You know what I mean? But I guess self awareness going into that, knowing without going into it blindly, letting it suck you in and turn you into something else. It's we have to keep eyes on ourselves. It's the inside eye. You know, call it the third eye. We can call it God's eye. We can call it so many things. But in a sense, we always have to be looking at what reflects us rather than seeing how things reflect onto us. You know
Right.
how people see themselves in physical objects, like they like, oh, I only get Gucci pants and all that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
only wear certain brands. You know what I mean? It's like they've identified with that.
Right.
If they can't make that object identify with them, then it's expendable. You know what I mean? And that's one of the morals that I like to I call it a moral because it's actually changing how the object is affecting the human rather than, yeah, basically that. The object doesn't have the control over the human anymore. Certain objects cause people to do things because of how they're seen. And because of how they're seen, the moral starts to conflict because now they're acting through an object rather than that conditioning of having a good moral.
Mm-hmm.
Being a person that's neither, I'm pretty much left in the middle with nothing.
You know,
But
and how you bring it out, like it's and I know like you seen these things in the news, right? Like and these kids.
yeah.
That's another reason why I'm bringing it. These kids killing each other, right? Like this young 17-year-old
Mm-hmm.
kid got killed for like a what name dropping or something that, and it goes to like what you're saying, right? Their moral of like nobody disrespecting my name is so
Mm-hmm.
huge, right? That they're willing to go out and kill somebody for that, right? Like that moral of them
Yeah.
is skewed because of their attachment to whatever that object is, right? Like you were saying, right?
Exactly.
Now,
Yep.
now, quick question for you, Brian, and forgive me for prying. Like, if growing up and stuff, were you heavy into the church or really into the religious, like with the family? And like, I mean,
My
what's the
grandma was
experience?
in.
Or?
My grandma was basically the source of religious understanding, but through a song like she sang. She was in the choir, and I would really only go with her, to see her sing and to go to Old Country Buffet afterwards. That's really the only reason. I mean, I've read the Bible, cover to cover twice in my life. One of the times I was in jail, but yeah, it's there. It's there, and if it stopped being there at any point, it was always the reference point for me. And honestly, I mean, I'm not religious by any means. Like I don't go to church. I don't praise the Lord. I don't do those things. I guess I communicate in a different sense um, from whatever He left inside of us. If you know what I'm saying.
I totally relate to you, bro. Like, I'm one that I do believe in a higher power, right? Like, I
Yeah.
believe that there's a God, right? I believe there's someone out there, but I've always had a problem going to like a church, right? And having this
Mm.
pastor or somebody tell me the do's and the don'ts and stuff, but always tell me that I can talk to God whenever I want to. So in my mind, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, why do I need you? Why don't I just tell you my problems and you my sins and open up to you and vulnerable and come to you? Let me talk to God, right? And then part of me, like I
Yeah.
said to myself, like I have a very strong connection with my ancestors. I feel like, the people who are my family that passed away, they leave me signs and clues, and I feel like I connect with them. I think I said to myself, God is busy handling a lot bigger things. So we have our guardian angels,
Mm.
our ancestors who look after us and
Mm.
guide us along those ways and stuff. So I relate to that. And the reason I asked you about the church thing, right, is because it is like as you mentioned, like you said, when you're 21 and you've broken all the Ten Commandments, so for you, it was like, all right, let me just reset and then start something new, right? Create new morals to help me get to wherever, right? Or you know what I mean? Like or really create
Mm.
this positive trajectory for myself. Because I'm thinking to
Mm.
myself, someone who may be really like die-hard religious person, feeling they broke the Ten Commandments, then they feel like then I got no way back. What's the point, and just completely give
Right.
up. right? So
Right.
that's
They
how they
normally would.
right, you know,
Yeah,
because it's
they
like,
would. They would.
hey, I need to move.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of giving up I'm noticing with these types of situations, like at least comparable to mine. You know what I mean? Like just in being in that system. Yeah, there's. I've noticed a lot of giving up. Um, my platoon completely wrote me off because I wanted to tell the truth. You know what I mean? Because I felt the people we were supposed to be defending in the first place, they had to at least know about. Because I feel like all that COVID stuff, like all the fear, pushing the fear out, the media stuff, like all that seemed to centralize around, Y2K. It seemed to start there, if not Desert Storm. You know what I mean? So there was something about this war in this area of the world that was stringing down feelings for the entire world, for the society. And I still think there's 9/11 like energy. You know what I mean? Like it's still that I remember the way people felt when it was happening,
Mhm.
and it looks the same. It looked the same when they said brought up the COVID thing. Immediately, I was just all like, they're pulling some bull crap. Like immediately because I've seen people respond like that before. I was 16 years old, and yeah, it was December 2000, and I was in church. Didn't even know why. Um, I wasn't there with my grandma, so it was like I didn't have any reason to be in church. But I was brought into church when this whole 2001 switchover happened.
Right.
There was something with that because I saw people's face, and they it almost looked like there was a monster standing in front of everybody that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
There is something, and it just trickled down because one person's experience being translated to their kids, it just keeps happening. So it's like everybody's passing down fear, just like genetics. And so then you got nowadays these kids out there protesting, like screaming about something they have no clue about. They might have moral ground, but it's not there. It's not their moral ground. You know what I mean? Like you can't have a bunch of 20, 30-year olds protesting for veteran equality if not one of them has joined. You know what I mean? Or really experience. I mean, it's the experience is so powerful. And if a person can experience any of what another person is saying, that's a bonus.
Mhm.
But it's so hard for people to get out of their insecurities in order to see another person in any sort of same light. It takes so much.
And you know what? That's what I love. I think I'm blessed with that gift, right? Like I just love to talk to
Yeah.
people, give them an open platform. Like, hey, man, like I just want to hear your story. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just be open and no judgment. You know what I mean? Just to be that freedom, right? Because I think that's
Yep.
well, at the end of the day, we're people. I've always grown loving people, right? Like I think everybody's unique and everybody has a different story to share.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like you were saying about what everything else, right? It boils around fear, right? Fear is a powerful, very, very powerful tool that we're talking about, right? So you need to
Yeah.
understand how to again use it to your advantage to stay alert, stay
Bingo.
vigilant,
Yep.
and not to react, right? You know what I'm saying? But use your fear to be proactive, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like and be able to make wise moves.
Mm-hmm.
And in those senses. So it comes back to that. And I know we're, as you're saying a lot about the time in the military and stuff, and part of it's, like I said, like, where we get our mentorships and our leaders and, mentioning back to our dad. So, and I think you might have mentioned, like you said, that you don't think you grew up with your dad, right? Was that, did I catch that right? Or,
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. He was pretty much in jail. I mean, that's the story growing up, and honestly, that's the story now. So I think he had a couple heart attacks while he was in. So pretty much, prison is his God,
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I
and
really,
that's not my God. Yeah, that's not my God at all.
so, well, we'll go like this, like seeing that relationship, right, with your dad and having that experience with him, what do you think that taught you in your journey and in growing up and becoming a man and becoming the person you are today?
That as a man, that as a man, I'm going to have to be there for the people I care about in a lot of impactful ways. Like it was almost like I was putting this burden of being there for the people I care about. There really ain't many. You know what I mean? It's not like I have a whole family that I share my heart with. That's far from it.
Right.
You know, I have two friends, and their families are their families, but my love starts with them, and because they're like me, you know, they're like me. So and like I said, the morals thing, the starting over, it's just that. It's like the people are sometimes people are the bearer of these morals. Like they hold the notebook that makes sure the conditioning gets thrown down, that gets followed down. There's certain people that uphold it. For me, it's self awareness. I want to be the self awareness guy more than Gary freaking V because I understand it. He's catching on to it, and he's a lot older than me. You know, there's something with self awareness. I swear to you, not if you can dig into self awareness as much as possible for yourself, for anything, for anybody. I can't stress it more. You know what I mean? All literally the self awareness brings every answer that could ever come up within a person's body, soul, mind, whatever. Um, I just don't. I wish people would have a switch. I learned how to use the switch. I could turn it on and off whenever I want. I don't have to meditate anymore to do it. I can go out for a walk and completely shut down as if society's not broken and actually be smiley about life. You know what I mean? Looking at a freaking tree dying in the desert. I can smile about it because I can relate to it, you know? So it goes deep. It goes so deep. When's your birthday, Jeff?
Well, my birthday is June 6th.
Okay. So you kind of understand the flow what I'm talking about. Like I'm going to call you out to your peoples because I know Geminis are conversative. They love to conversate, but at the same time, there is always going to be that struggle between what people see you as and how you see you as. It's your job to bring both halves of yourself together to face each other because it's so hard to be one and not the other. If you're one and not the other, your behavior is going to look weird because there's something good from this behavior that needs to integrate with this behavior. So it's like you got to be all of yourself at once.
Yeah,
That
and
sound good?
like I said, yeah, you actually very right on that one. I mean, for me, I always said, there are people who I gave you a little story, right? Which is so funny. I was well, at this job, I was working late nights, right? And one of my supervisor and one of my reps was gonna give me a ride home, right? And so I was like, oh, listen, let's go to this place in the hood, like it's this banging steak and cheese spot. Let's go pick up some food. It's on me, you know what I mean? Like, and we'll go home. So we
Right.
go there, right? And I get into the place and I order the food. I ask him what he wants. He tells me. So I was like, all right, I got you. Let me go order. So I go over and I order his food. And I turn around and he's like completely like in shock. And I'm like, yo, what happened? He's like, yo, you mad ghetto. Like, I don't like, what is this side of you? Like at work? Like, I'm like, listen, because I know where it is I be at work. I know how to adapt certain things and I know certain characteristics. Like I said, like when I'm with like, a certain like group of my friends, I'm a whole different myself. Like I'm completely liberated, right? Because I know that I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm in my safe space, I could say, right? And there's other places where like my wife, like I tell her, like my wife has never really seen me like completely lose it like my friends have. You know what I mean? Or get to that because I want to shield because I know my anger. I don't want you to see me that side of me. But
You can access it too, yeah.
yeah, but I can. And then there's moments where I
Yep.
can, go in and out in these different roles. And I think that part of it comes with like I said, learning to adapt growing up, and trying to fit in all these situations, learning how to adjust that character. And that's like, you know what, like I've come to accept that part of me, right? Like I'm not going to like fight it anymore, like deny, like, yes, I'm good at adapting. I'm good at, going in and out and changing my persona if I have to fit my needs of where I am. You know what I
On
mean?
the outside.
Right, and I mean, and right, that's the thing. Like, it's although like I said, on the outside, like I would see, and as what this group of people wants to see, but my message is still the
Hmm.
same. I just know how to deliver my message and adapt it to this group because I've adapted and I've infiltrated you, right? I've understand how you work,
Yeah.
how you tick, so I know how to say, do, and act to get what I want across.
Right. Yeah. It was. I mean, I'm a Scorpio. My birthday is November 15th. It was tricky, but I honestly I learned that from a Gemini. I learned how to actually keep the inside the same, even though the outside is morphing. You know what I mean? Because I do have the same type of adaptability. And through nature, through the nature, and yeah, it gets pretty interesting when it doesn't change anymore. That's one thing about like this conversation would probably happen with a crackhead on the street if I felt the need to stop to talk. Like I would find a way to make this the conversation and force them to adapt. For some reason, when I learned how to express myself, it was like the words started to move things and sway them to pay attention. And I just kind of focused on keeping that somewhat English, you know. 'Cause I'll go there. I'll go out there. I'll speak so many different languages that I'll really just be saying the same thing. It would just come out in like, you know, 10 different, kingdoms of thought. It's strange. It's
Yeah,
strange.
I've mastered what's called everybody knows the golden rule, right? They say that, oh, treat people
Mm-hmm.
how you want to be treated. And I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no. You have to use the platinum
Mm-hmm.
rule. Treat people how they want to be treated, right?
Right.
So if you
Right.
understand how somebody likes to do certain things, how they want to be treated, then you know how to implant your thoughts or your opinions, or you know what I mean, like, or get your message across so that it's understood on that behalf, right? And it does take a lot of skill and learning, and but you have to be number one, like you said, I think very very self aware, right? Because you have to understand, what you're actually. You have to really be cautious of your moves. If you're not self aware, then you're making mistakes, right?
Yeah, you're
And
missing
then you have
stuff.
to be
Yep.
completely open minded, right? And able to receive things at a blank slate, right? Because then you can't be reactive or certain things. Like if they say something that may be against your morals, you have to be able to know how to disguise them. Like, oh, all right, and go with the flow, not to give
Yeah.
away anything, but then still
Yeah.
be able to turn it around, right? Like so.
Yeah.
It is. Hey, like I said, people do that. Yes, I am that, and I. That's the part of that I said too. Like I've struggled with finding myself, and when I learn to do that, like I can be me in any situation, um, by changing the skin, right, the avatar on the outside, but still being me,
Yep.
right, and being happy with
Oh
that.
yeah.
So so that's dead on how you were able to break that down with the sign. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like knowing that. Now going into that by saying like I know that your dad wasn't around right for you growing up and now did that play any decision in you wanting to enlist into the military, or what was your driving force to get involved or join?
I mean, it was already a perk. Like it wasn't like living up to dad. There was none of that because I was already signed up by the time I was 16 and waiting to go. I graduated when I was 17. So it's like because I pretty much already surpassed him so early in life, it just never struck me as a need or there's nothing missing from it. Honestly, it's more the line of it's no reason to turn back. That's what it's gotten to. He's gone. He's probably been gone longer than I even think.
Mhm.
But as long as I only have the memory of him grabbing my mom and throwing against the wall, as long as I have that memory, I don't think there's none of that. I'm pretty much the end of the line, for genetics with that one.
So you're saying like what was it more like just trying to continue to be better? What you thought like joining the military would make you a better man than he was, or continue to surpass him?
Yeah, I think it happened at least to society's perception. Like, yeah, basically is I mean it was I was I didn't go to jail. You know, granted, I went to a more systematic freedom, but nobody wants to go to jail. So it's like he went to jail. I didn't. I'm better than him. I did exactly what I was supposed to do as the next generation.
So was it like that? Like as this joining was your way of preventing yourself from going to jail? Do you think like if you would have stayed around
Oh
and
no, not for me at least. No, it happened. It happened. It was a lot of people's reasoning, almost too many people's reasoning. But no, for me, it was really to tell my mom she couldn't control me. It was really it backfired because she had to sign the paper because I was 17. So you know, it was kind of weird. It was like, no, it's still under her control, even though I'm still rebelling in that way. So
right?
it backfired a little bit, you know.
Wow, wow.
And I'm clear on it, you know.
I guess you were in like I said, very early age, right? 17, yeah, you when she saw
Yeah.
you when you're in enlisting. How long were you there for?
Um, in the army,
Yeah.
4 years, 4 whole years. I got a general discharge because basically I got my tongue pierced. My grandma died in 2004, March,
Mm.
and we basically got back that January. I was home. I was alive, and like I was done. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not going back over there. There's nothing y'all can say to make me do it. And 2 months later, I was set to get out in '05, but 2 months after we got back in '04, she died, and then I just didn't give a shit anymore. My first sergeant tried to tell me that I couldn't go see my grandmother when the Red Cross message came through. He tried to tell me I couldn't visit her as she'd lie in the hospital as a vegetable. I gave the first sergeant the finger, walked out, and gave them hell that whole last year. We were supposed to stay within a 50-mile radius of Fort Bragg. Screw that. I'm going to Ohio. Screw that. I'm going to Florida. I'm leaving. You know, like it was 4 years, and then that last year was like I did not give a crap about anything they had to say, and because I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm still standing. you know, I was already.
I love having these conversations because I mean I can tie it down and relate to so many different things, right? And seeing the cases as you're saying, like with your grandmother. With me, I was working for this company, right? And I'm doing my time. I'm moving up the ladder, doing everything I need to do and stuff. And my grandmother passed away, and
Mhm.
I go to my supervisor and my manager. I'm like, hey, listen, my grandmother just passed away. Like she's out in Puerto Rico. Like I'm trying to figure this out because they're going over there for everything. Like, you know, what do I do? And they're like, well,
Yeah.
you don't have any more time left. All right. So,
Hmm.
I mean, we can't tell you what you can or can't do, but if you don't have any time, you know that you could be written up for not using your time. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about time right now. My grandmother just passed
No,
away. Like,
hell
what are
no.
you like? So that you know what I mean? Like, it was just that such like dehumanization of it. You know what I mean? In this corporate world and all, and it's just like, where is the heart? Like, where is
Yeah.
the compassion of somebody here? I'm busting my ass for the company, right? Doing my do's and don'ts. So it's not like I got another grandmother that's gonna die tomorrow. Like, it's my only one.
Hmm.
There's no me
Yep.
getting a do over at this.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what
and
I'm saying.
and
Like
she
the
was
power, and they have this power to make these decisions, but yet there's no love behind it for them to empathize with. See, that's the balance I'm talking about. Now, if they were balanced in love and power as a leadership figure, then they would use that to help you to close out this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like to help you get through the loss. They would use their power to do that out of heart. You know what I mean? It's like you can talk through exactly what a person can do with that balance. It's just people are so heavy on feeling powerful.
yeah.
And it's like, for me, it comes natural. For some reason, I don't have to do anything to give off my power. Like silence. My silence is deadly for some reason. and it makes people question their existence if I wanted to. And no, there's a way. If I add heart in there, then they could see discipline, or they could see self awareness. Something.
Listen, and it goes beyond that, right? Because like I said, for this company, right, I worked with them for like 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really, really like messed up like situation for me, right? Really, really messed me up.
Mm-hmm.
Now I went for the year that my son was born, right? And then I had put my dog down. I was working for this pool company, right? Glen Gate
Okay.
Pools. Dan, I'm gonna shout him out to the day that I die, right? Like cause I love cleaning pools, but I work for this company. I went for the interview, right? And immediately, like the vibe that I felt was a real family vibe, like between these two managers that were interviewing me, and they were discussing, like they would, you felt like the really good connection between these guys, right?
Right.
Got the job and I loved it. I'm going over there when my son was born. The company, I got home and it was a package in my house. It was an elephant, that's played peekaboo and a blanket with his name embroidered on it. Like I've been with Jeff for like a month and a half. You know what I mean? Like, and you said for my son, and I'm a family man. So anything you nice to my family, you win my heart, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's step
Yeah.
one, right? But well, the biggest thing I had with my supervisor, one day I was again, when my dog passed away, I was going through a lot personally, through a lot of depression. My marriage was going through was going through it too. Like me and my wife were going through some things, and I called out of work one day, and one of my supervisors questioned me, like, "Why are you calling out?" I was like, "Listen, honestly, man, I'm trying to save my marriage. Like, I don't know what I was like. I'm not gonna get shit cold. Like, I'm not. I gotta stay home, right? Like
Yeah.
that was it." The next day I went into work. And I noticed that my day was a little bit lighter than usual, but I didn't think nothing of it. Whatever, things change. I go do my shift. I call my boss. Hey, listen, I finished all my pools. Like, do I got anything other work? He's like, nah, you can come to the office. Like, all right, cool. I pull up to the office and his truck is there. Normally, there's nobody there at this time, but his truck is there. And I pulled up and he's like, yo, have a seat. I was like, all right, man. And he said, listen, I know what you said to the other guy, about your marriage and stuff, and I'm not going to pry, man, but do you need to talk?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is it? Do you need to talk? And I just unloaded, bro. Like I just unloaded. Like I just, everything and that's all it took. Yo, I will never work for another pool company if it's not for them. Like they've gained my loyalty because of, like you said, because they
Wow.
managed the heart and the power part, right? And they blended that so
Yeah.
well. I don't care what it is, what they need. I would never do anything bad because of those little things and what they've done, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
So I think that ties in very, very keenly to what you said in that, and I think like you're saying, going to the military and rebelling that last year was like that too. Like really, you just didn't see that relation or for what you want to do with them. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And
really power.
the ultimate test for the balance of love. Give me a second.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah.
The in the love and power balance, like it's such a hard balance to keep when for the individual are not going well. That's when it gets tricky. That's when it's like they people end up choosing a side. Basically, they don't want to make no enemies, so they rely heavily on the love factor and the empathy. But it tends to make leadership look weak. You know what I mean? Especially when somebody's having an issue within their group. There's definitely a balance that people do show. It's sometimes I think they don't even see it. Like they take leadership skills and certain things, but it's applied through their own nature in a way that actually makes that balance so. And it's, most people don't like some leaders won't even understand what the hell I'm saying right now. They're like, I don't know what balance you're talking about, but yet they do everything right, like the pool company. Like it's like,
It is
sometimes
natural.
it's
Listen,
really
like I
about
said.
sitting down. Yep, yep. Oh
You
yeah.
know when it's genuine. I remember like what like I said, I'm like that with my reps, and I'm a very again people person, right? I want to see people succeed. I want to see people do well. And I had this one rep that I was working with, and she wasn't doing well with her numbers and stuff. And I had a really good relationship with everybody on my team, right? Very friendly and understanding with them. And we're working on her and getting her numbers up. And she ended up failing, I guess, the test again, and the company had to let her go, right? So The HR director was with her, and my suit manager was in the room with her, getting ready to fire, and she breaks out, and the whole time she was like telling him like, "You need to go get Freddie. You need to go get
Yeah.
Freddie. I need to talk to him right now. You need to go get." And it was like they didn't know what to do. It's like, hey, they came to me, it's like, Freddie, we don't like she this is the first time we ever seen. It's like she wants to talk to you, like she's like hysterical. Like, can you come and talk? And I'm like, all right, cool. So I walk in there and I'm like, hey, was she immediately gave me a hug and she's like, oh my God, like, I don't know, like I know we tried so hard. I'm like, listen, I know, but listen, don't worry about it. Like, listen, this is not the end. You have your son and we had a real heart. And it was and they were like looking at me like, wow. And I'm like, but that's the type of relationship you gotta have with people. Like if you're in management, that's how to go. You have to understand your people and engage with them and really connect with them, right? Like because if not, you it's just in your benefit. It's in your benefit, right? Because I'm kind and I'm caring and going an extra mile for these people. Many of the times they be like, listen, Freddie, I don't give a damn about this job. I'm just doing my numbers because I don't want you to look bad. Like I can get you, you know what I mean? Like because I can't let you down because you develop that relationship. You have that manage the balance and the power like we've been talking about this whole time, right? And it goes so far. But yeah, so I mean, going on to that, so I mean, I guess like you say, I mean, it's different situation, right? The military and how they did you with your grandmother and that conversation with, and we see it in all these places. It's so crazy. That's what I said. But I love talking to people, and like, I guess I find the right ones because I find so much in common and connecting. It's been so amazing, being sharing these topics with you and speaking so well. But again, when it comes to different things, and like I said, I know that your dad wasn't there, and in the military, I guess it wasn't that figure of helping you or develop you into the person that you are. Or so, who would you attribute that, or did you have any male figures or anyone that you could rely on in teaching you the steps of becoming a better person or growing into the man that you are?
No, absolutely not. My squad leader was okay. He just, he had too many divorces. But no, this is what it looks like as a person that did not seek mentorship, wasn't available, it wasn't sought after. You know, my grandma basically raised me um, until you know 10, something like that, 10 or 11. My mom was always working, so she was gone a lot. My grandma was my heart. That was pretty much my mom, and you know, my grandpa was just always there. But honestly, he was he was about the guy could not tell what he was up to.
You
like
know,
you know,
so you say bring about your grandpa, I know what he was up to, and then when you mention your squad leader, which I find it very interesting because I was just kind of talking about this a couple of shows before, but you mentioned that he wasn't a good mentor because he had too many divorces.
right? Like I mean, that was one of the things I think a man should be able to do is hold a relationship.
And that's so crazy because like I said to somebody else is that I find it so interesting that a lot of these guys who, whether their dad wasn't in their picture or whether they were or whatever their relationship is that a lot of guys and as much as women talk about like men don't want to get married, they say, hey, I look at so and so because they had such a great marriage. My grandmother and grandfather, they've been together for 56 years, that long, strong marriage. You just mentioned like, oh, he wasn't a good role model because he had too many divorces. So at the end of the day, we're all seeking like love or that companionship, and then really that bond, which is crazy. That it's a natural instinct that I'm starting to see as I'm having these conversations with people. No matter what they say about relationships or whatever, we're or even if they talk about like, oh, I want to be with like 150 chicks or like I'm going to be doing like at the end of the day, they talk about relationships and marriages that last,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I find that so interesting.
Because if this points in the relationship, I had like a year expiration on my relationship. For some reason, I never been in a romantic relationship longer than 2 years, and it almost seemed like every single one was learning for the next one. Like the school material for the next one. And it just got to the point where I was like, I keep getting more and more books on this subject or information, and it just keeps becoming to be more information. And it's like I pretty much gave up. If it comes
Bro,
around in some serious way,
don't,
sure.
don't listen. I promise you, then this is probably the reason why I have this conversation, part of this too. don't give up, right? Because and I had that reaction because you said I haven't been in a relationship longer than 2 years. I swear to, I promise you, one of my things that I said to myself, if I'm able to be with a girl for more than 2 years and still be interested, she's probably the one that I'm going to want to marry. When I got to my wife with about like the 2 year mark, and I knew that I was still like trying and still wanting to be this and one, man, I was like, this is the one. And then that's why I was like the 2 year mark. And I felt just like you, man. I went to this phase where it's like, you're trying to find this love and you're giving your all into these relationships and you're talking about this and you're really wanting to be committed and you just continually to get played.
Mhm.
But all of those things are very, very important lessons for you to carry on that will show up in your next relationship or things that you want to know. Like with my wife, this on our second date, was one of the things that I knew that I was wanting to be with her because our second date we went out somewhere, she paid the bill, right? And that's never happened to me. But in my head, what I took that as was that she really wants to be here for me in my time, that she's willing to pay this meal and just was about the company. You know what I mean? Like that was what was a trigger. Like it was because most chicks like, oh, you're not gonna pay the bill, like you're looking for a free, you know what I mean? Like, and it's why should that be? Yeah, even to this, like I sent my wife earlier this month, right? Like through like Instagram, it was like, oh, September is take a man out on a date month or whatever, right? And we went to open house last night for our daughter, right? And after we got to the car, and I'm thinking like, oh, we're gonna go home. And she looked at me, she's like, somebody said that it's taking man on a date month, and I got 2 days left, so I'm taking you out to dinner. And we went out to, and I'm like, man, but that's nothing because it's about my time and my company. She wanted to be here, right? I had another girl I was talking to was like, hey, come take the train. If you want to come see me, take the train, come see me. Like, I'll pick you up at the train station. I'll go. Didn't want to do it. My wife, when we started dating, she was like, hey, my car broke down. In the back of my head, I was like, oh, she's not going to come. She's making excuses. Like, I know this story before, like, da 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 da. She's like, yeah, my car broke down, but I'm getting dropped off at the train station. I'm going to get driven up there. Would you mind picking me up at the train? And I'm, wait, what? Hell yeah. Like, and those are the things that we have to go through, right? Because then we see, and so that when the person that is right for us, then we can tie it to these things. Like, man, I remember how this made me feel. I remember how that. So bro, don't give up. Don't give up, though. I want you to say that, like, maybe this is the sign like that, go about doing what you're
Right.
doing, but you'll see the signs. You have a lot of knowledge to find out. When you see her, you'll know, and you'll know.
Yeah, yeah. I think you might have called me out right there because I don't know. There's one, and honestly, I'm trying. I was basically like almost forcing myself to be her friend, not because of
Um,
who she was, because I was like, maybe I should just not go straight to relationship this time. You know what I mean? Like, finally, a cool girl that likes science. Um, I'm just going to be her friend and whatever from there. You know what I mean? It's been 4 years, and I'm basically going to help my sister design a vegetable garden. Like, I'm in Las Vegas. I'm basically going to go to Florida. You feel me? Like, it's like I would do that. Like, it's the things we got to do.
so that's a yeah, listen,
I'm
with my
extreme.
wife. So no, 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 listen. With my wife, right? And everybody jokes about this. Well, they get on me, but I did not make a move. I did not kiss her, and we went on dates and everything for 4 months.
Mhm.
It was literally to the point where she was saying, she was like, man, like I was at this point where like if this guy doesn't kiss me, like I don't know where we are, just because I don't know if he likes me, if he wants to be. But because I was so cautious of myself, like I was like, I don't want to rush this. I know how I did these things in the past, and I wanted to make sure this is legit. And I was still kind of like procrastinating and testing the waters and kind of fearful because it was even more intimidating because I'm like, man, like she seems so perfect. Like if this goes wrong, like she will destroy me, right? Like, and I can't give nobody that power. But the more I try to fight it, the more I couldn't help it, right? I just had to succumb to it, right? And we got 2 kids now. We've been married. We got married in 2012, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's been beautiful. And we continue to grow. But like, if that don't give up. If maybe she might be the one, you know what I mean? But allow yourself to get out there, right? Like, that's one of the things that I continue to do. And if I didn't continue to allow myself to get hurt, I don't think I would have never found her, right? Because I went through a phase where I was really like to a point where I just didn't want to have a relationship. I was really like in that. It's all about one thing, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm not interested in nothing else because I don't want nobody to hurt me. But you gotta allow yourself to go out there because for me, man, I couldn't be happier. You know what I mean? I want the same for and like I said, we have a lot in common, and it's so crazy that a lot of these things are kind of looking at these numbers and stuff that, hey man, this might have been it, man. But
You a
you know,
Gemini too?
no, my wife, she's an Aries. She's April 2nd. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay, so you know what? Just because I don't know, I think she might be asleep, but now I need you to elaborate. What do you have on Aries? If you got Gemini like that, please elaborate on the Aries for me, sir.
Oh, it's more so about, the elemental combination of it. Because it can either burn down the house or set off the heat of passion. But most of the time, I think I'm just gonna take a wild guess and say you're the one that has to get things started up for whatever it may be. She has to make sure that she feels powerful and happy about being powerful. It's joy. Joy is what she's probably most focused on, and anything that gets in the way of joy, I think that's when you see her protective side. So this is probably a girl you can't make happy. You can't make unhappy. You don't want to be the person that makes her unhappy.
No.
Okay, as long as
Wow.
it's. But no,
Okay.
big heart, really mentally active. That's what I like about him because I have like a really high mental energy thing going. But powerful. That's what they're about. And they center a spotlight. They like a spotlight too.
Yeah, no,
So
that's one thing that really drew me to her was her powerful presence. Like I said, she's very, very independent and in control of herself. Like, so that's when I looked at her and I said, you know what, I want my kids to have that characteristic. I want those characteristics. And like we were saying, like they mentioned in the last episode too, but like Denzel said, when you find a woman, remember her beauty will not raise your children, her brains will.
right.
And then my wife's mentality, what we are, we're like on the same page. We have a great we really work as different as we are. We're able to work together and talk to our differences because we also work so well. We know that we really complete each other, right? She has a lot of pieces that I don't have that I wanted for my kids and vice versa. Like for
Yeah.
me, like that, she's very direct and like very confident about herself, but I have an exuberant amount of patience, so it's like the yin and yang again, power, it's coming right back to that again, the balance, right?
It seems like
Um,
it has to almost resist. Like there has to be the conflict of the difference in order
mhm.
for it to act like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's like somebody that's like you, it might not be the best thing. I like the opposite thing.
No, I do,
And
and it's so crazy. Like you're saying that too, because a lot of times that when this happens to us constantly, is that when we get into an argument or into these like these things and stuff, we're ultimately fighting for the exact same thing, right? Like we want the same outcome, but we're just sitting here like still like at having difficulty finding the way to get to that outcome. I guess the problem, which is what I mean, like that. That's I guess that's another part of that conversation. That at least we know we're fighting for the same thing, and against the same thing. But it's not a matter of like we're both agreeing, but we're still arguing, right? Which is it's just
that's
but
you
it works
though.
out for us.
That might be no. Just ask. I
Hold on,
mean,
don't say that too loud. Don't say that too loud. She might like, hold on, no, no, no.
ask questions, man. Like they'd rather you ask questions because they get that spotlight effect, But at the same time, you're getting them thinking. That's all that's the most important. They might get passionate and start yelling about it, but it's not bad. I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not
I mean,
easy.
I took okay. Astrology is important to me because I would have never came to understand how people behave if it wasn't for that. Horoscopes scare the shit out of me. I don't mess with it's about the way the universe moves that's lined up with certain people. There's pretty much only 24 people in the world. There's 12 baseline, you know, signs, symbols, but then there are people in between those symbols that make up both sides of those two signs. And so it's almost like
fingernails and tell if they're freaking a Gemini or a Taurus just by the way their fingernails look, based off whatever Indian learning I learned over the years. Like all these things connect in a certain way, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of your kids was an Earth, like a Taurus, Virgo, or a Capricorn. Not all of them, because y'all need to be grounded. That's the
My
only
my
assumption.
son, my son, he's April 23rd.
Okay, so he's a Taurus.
My
Yes.
son, he's April 23rd, he's a Taurus, and my daughter is November 21st.
See there. So he's a half Scorpion, half. Okay, so you're good. You're good. You're set. Your kids will keep you in line. Those are some powerful, and those are the ones in the middle that I was telling you about. The ones that aren't baselines, they take up two halves of separate signs. You know, the
Hmm.
Aries and Libra are obviously conflicting, but then you got the Scorpio in the water and the Sagittarius in the fire, which is what I can relate to more. It's interesting. I know your kids probably
It's a
real
very
interesting.
interesting dynamic in this household, but I love it. I love it. Everybody's very, very unique. Like my daughter's personality is completely unique. My son is completely different from her. He's very, very unique. So it's very interesting parenting, right? Like as a dad, um, like I said, but in my business, like my dad was in my house, right? He was home, but he wasn't the type to go outside and play catch. He had to ride a bike or go to wasn't there. He was a provider, right? That was his role, and I think that's kind of damn. I just did hit something on myself, right? Like I think that's why myself, right? Like one of my biggest things is being a provider, right? Like having to pay the bills with a family. And so when I lost my job, 6 years ago when I was out, I went through some intense depression because I didn't feel like a provider. And now that I'm seeing it now, my dad, well, that's all he was. He was a provider, right? So that's what I learned from him. And shit, okay, well, damn, all right, layer uncovered, right? Achievement unlocked. Let's just but then the other part that, like I said, that what I wanted, right? So with my kids, like I'm a stay-at-home dad. That's why I do my podcast. I do all these things. I try to find a job or find something that allows me to control my time as much as possible because I don't want my kids to be like, oh, my dad wasn't at my graduation or he didn't come to my concert choir class or he wasn't at my baseball game or he didn't take me. That's not gonna happen with me, because I know what that felt like for me, and I don't want them to feel that. So I think that's twofold how that helped me evolve, right? Like seeing my dad as ultimately that, just being a provider, provider and a protector, and not wanting my kids to feel like I wasn't there. Like my kids get tired of me. They see me every day, all day, all day, and I tell my kids 1,000 times a day how much I love them, because I need them to hear that because of what that was like for me, and growing up. So it was, man, man. I love this conversation, man. Just helping you realizing how these things are going, man. So, and as always winding down here, I want to take up like too much more time, but definitely love to have you back for another episode, and maybe I will talk to you about another project that I got going on because I really, really am intrigued and love how your mind works, bro. So, we'll
Yeah.
definitely link up. But so that's what I told you before, right? As we wind it down, right? So with everything that you've been through, you sound very worldly traveled, right? Through your time in the military and everything that you're going through in this journey and finding yourself. What do you think has been the best piece of advice that you have been given on your journey so far?
The best piece of advice that I could think of. This actually came. He's dead. He's not alive or anything, but there's a man named Alan Watts, and he seems to see things kind of how my head processes things. And there was something that he said about belonging. Basically, because everything works in such exponential levels. You got the individual, you got the group, you got the world, the solar system, the galaxy. You have this escalation of destination, and it's for people that don't feel like they belong. It comes down to we already belong where we're supposed to be. It's the fact that we're here. Like, I can't belong anywhere else except on this podcast right now, like that. Because that's the art of being present. You know what I mean? It's the reason why people don't feel like they belong generally is because they can't find that similarity. But we're already supposed to be there. That's the similarity. And so that helped me not be such a toxic introvert and actually know how to change skins without changing my heart. And it's like that belonging, feeling accepted, all those, that shit's important. I'm just learning it for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, it never was a thing in my life. I never had to belong anywhere. I was always moving. So
I think that's like so what it is that people, it's in our nature, right, to find a herd, right, or find a group or find a clique. Like it's instantly you gravitate to that, right? So it was like a perfect example. It's like, when, you're in your hometown, right? You see somebody in the stream like, oh, you hear somebody talking like, oh, you grew up on West Ave? I grew up on West Ave. Like, oh, snap, like, and you gain that kind of, you instantly bond over that, right? And it even goes to a larger state, right? Like you can go to somewhere and let's say you're out in Disney World in Florida and you're with your family and then you run to somebody and be like, oh, I'm back from, Norwalk, Connecticut. And be like, oh, really? I'm from Stamford, Connecticut. We both from Connecticut. And you find that bond, right? Even if you go to like, again, the different country, you're from you, I'm from you instantly gravitate because we want to feel a sense of connection, of belonging, a bond, right? Like we are naturally group like that, right? Like you see like the and just hit me now too, like thinking about these major probably New York as a mecca and California and Miami, and everybody wants to go to, because there's so much going on, there's so many groups of people there because you feel a sense of needing to belong, right? And I think that what goes on to that, like you said, that with belonging, and I think the other part to that is, like you said, being present, like really being now, right? Like, and in the moment, you can't be anywhere else but where you are, right? Like, nothing can ever be taken from you in the universe, right? Because you are where you need to be at all times. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't be in two places at once, which I love how you said that. So I think that's key on bringing that up. But it's something that I work with my daughter about, like being present. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Michael Jordan documentary. Um, that what was it called now, man? But it was the one with Michael and stuff. But there was an episode they talked about Kobe, right? And what they were saying is that the greatest ability or the greatest superpower that made Kobe and Michael Jordan so great, so wonderful, was because they knew how to be in the moment, right? Their mind was never, again, like perfect example, right? Have you seen that champ? Like, they're interviewing Kobe, right? And they're like, "Hey, Kobe, your team's up 2-up. Like, why aren't you happy?" It's like, "Well, 4. The job's not finished." Like, what am I celebrating for? Like, I'm not gonna celebrate something that's so early. I'm in the moment right now. Right now, we are 2-0, right? We didn't win the championship. We're nothing. There's still more games to play, but I need to be right here in the moment, right? Like when he's up there taking a shot, he's not thinking like, oh, what if I miss this shot? Or what if like I'm taking a shot right now? It's kind of going, I gotta put everything I got because this might be the game. I'm in the moment, you know,
yeah,
and it's so hard now with all of us, like with our cell phone, with our social media, stuff like that, to take ourselves present. Like we could be in the room with our family having dinner, but we take ourselves out to look at what this person posted, right? We're not in the moment where everybody's involved right now, all right? So we're choosing not to be there, or you're sitting there with your kid and the TV turns on and they're looking, like we're not in the moment. Like someone was telling my daughter, like these things are not important. I mean, we're in the car. Let's talk. Let's look out the window. Let's appreciate nature. Let's talk about what is happening right now. Not what happened before, what's going to happen tomorrow, right now. And
yeah.
that's where we find happiness, right? Because I tell them, if you're looking in the past, you're going to find depression. If you're looking in the future, you're going to find anxiety. Be right here, right now.
That's the way it is. That's the way. That's the way. That's the pattern. Like it doesn't even matter what part of the past, how happy it was, how sad it was. It doesn't even fucking matter. It's like going back. If you aren't using that stuff to actually make the moment better, then it's not going to serve any good. You know what I mean? Like it's about the moment. It's like how can this moment emphasize better by using the future thought? You know what I mean? Ambition, basically, right? Desires and stuff. So like it's like we can use it, But we can't get trapped in those different times. Honestly, being in the moment all the time. That's you see Michael Jordan and Kobe. They were, I'm just gonna simplify it and they say that they were called ball hogs. Like they didn't do the teamwork thing well. And it's like, well, it's because their frame of mind was engaged with the full moment. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's what it takes to be the best in the now. But I think if both of them had a future mindset along with it, then they would actually probably evolve. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't feel the need to cheat on their wife or to gamble or whatever the hell they do. You know what I mean? Like they feel that barrier, and then fear is a red flag on that barrier. So fear is how you know an obstacle's coming. You're like that's what I take it as. Like when you're afraid, that means there's a wall there and it's time to crush it
Hmm.
because it's stopping you for a reason. Because there's treasure, there's strength of treasure on the other side of that wall. I mean, call it light, whatever it is, but there's something over there, and I'm going to get
Will Smith
it.
said it best. He said the best things in life are located on the other side of fear.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was
there we
like,
go.
that is amazing. Like, which is true, right? Like, and again, fear is not meant to stop you. It's meant to protect you, right? To get you ready, right? So, like, hey, this road is gonna be rough. It's gonna be a lot to go through. You're gonna have to encounter a lot of things, but let's be prepared, right? Like, not to turn around, but just be ready. Just be ready, and that's it, right? I mean, we need to be cool with that.
Yeah, it's being cool with it. That's the key. Being
So
cool with it.
awesome, man. So lastly then, and again, I'll end this off here. So with everything that you've gone through, right, anything that you've experienced, and like you said, growing up with your dad, looking at these kids growing up or anybody that's watching this, what is one piece of advice that you want to give them that would help them in their journey?
Huh. I think as far as the younger next generation goes, I really do think that they have to know how they actually feel. They need not take feelings from others and relate to them right away. You know what I mean? Like not having the experience that that person's sharing with them, they tend to take it on. You know what I mean? I mean, our people freaking took racism so freaking far away from actual racism that it to me it doesn't look like it anymore. But it's like they're still holding something that somebody gave them. You know, a burden. You know what I mean? So it's like try not to burden yourself holding these programs, these conditioning. You know, because ultimately, once we let go of the things that we were taught, we can actually teach ourselves things. You know what I mean? Half the time without even really learning.
You
So,
know,
like I taught
and
myself physics when I finally saw the truth. That exact day. Um, it was like all the things that were a lie that I didn't even notice. I was able to see how much of a lie it was almost immediately. So it's the more you play around internally, the more these things unlock.
yeah,
So
no,
let go of the conditioning. Let it go.
yeah, I guess it's true, right? Like, yeah, I think it goes back to like what you said earlier, which is amazing to do, right? How you canceled out your previous morals or what you were taught to create something new. And we all need to do that, right? Our parents do their best to teach us what they know, right? They can't teach us what they don't know,
Right.
So we go out in the world with knowledge that they provide us and seek additional information, right? How to improve or how to develop that, right? But we also have to, like you said, develop that self-awareness to understand that, just because mom and dad did this for X many amount of years doesn't mean that this is going to continue to be the right way going forward. Right? Like I
Yeah.
understand what their morals or what their biases are, but this is a different way of doing that. Let me adjust it to this way and still kind of like we've been saying, right? Adapting, keeping our insides the same, but changing the frame, right? Changing the skin and adapting to the situation. Right. So we need to learn that and be able to grow and not be afraid to question it, right? Like I want my daughter and I teach my daughter to have a voice for herself. I want you to speak
Mhm.
up, say what you do wrong. And if I do something wrong, I want to make sure that I apologize, right? Because I want her to have that power to understand that she's able to grow and understand and be able to question me sometimes, right? I don't know all the answers. I'm not perfect. There's no guide in raising kids. And like I said, even if there was, you're different from every other kid in this world.
Yeah. If
So
anything, parenting correctly is parenting incorrectly. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like if it doesn't look different than what you're used to, let me make sure this is worded right. Yeah, if it doesn't look if it looks the same as what you can see with the world, it's probably not the right way. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's we have to find our own way. I've seen that be a lot more fruitful in the end. Is when you know you, you're not constantly having parents exert their power over their kids. I know you know what I'm talking about. Like it's like you see them out there and they're basically like cursing at their kids, basically.
do as I
You
say.
know, like yeah, basically. And you know those kids are the ones that probably end up shooting up stuff and all that because you know that's the only way to interact with a child or anybody insignificant or lower is to yell at them. You know, and it doesn't even have to be a kid. It could be somebody that person thinks is lower. That person's lower. I'm gonna treat them like a child, and then it just goes on until it escalates and blows up, just
You
like
know
our
what I
little
think it
shadow
is
boxes.
now that how you say that, all right? And as we're closing out, and I'm thinking of this, is that uh, what happens to a lot of us, right? And in those situations, when you're a child, right? And I think this happened to me a lot, right? When I'm trying to grow up and trying to speak my mind, right? Or express myself or, let people know how I'm feeling, I immediately shut down, right? Like, don't say nothing. It's not, I don't care what you're feeling with it, is what I say instead of whatever. So you're constantly forcing me to hold on to my emotions, right? Not deal with them, suppress them, bottle them up, and all that stuff. And like you said about these school shootings, all these things, these kids, because they're being forced to not have voice, shut down, be quiet. Like, and what happens is like I love Jason Wilson's terms when he talks about emotional incarceration, right? You have all these things going up, and we all know that the analogy about the soda bottle and all this stuff. You can only take so much, right? And what happens is you don't know when it's going to happen, what's going to happen when it does, but eventually you will erupt, and all those emotions and feelings and happy, sad, angry, frustrated comes out at once in ways that are so toxic and dangerous to anyone within your vicinity that it's scary. All right, like, and then that's part of, like I said, like I don't want my wife to see me explode because I know I post that and stuff, and I don't want to damage that because I didn't deal with these emotions.
I'm telling you, it's like I used to be a hurricane. Like when that feeling would come, because I compartmentalized like a champ. Like I understood it way too well for a very long time, and it was like just it has to come out,
It
and
has
I
to.
didn't do that part.
It has to. It has to. And if we don't like control on how it comes out and learn how to go back, 'cause that's what I do, and sometimes is that I something happens, right, and I feel this negative emotion, right, or I feel this negativity and stuff that I immediately suppress, and I'm like, all right, I need you to hold on to this, go back to your safe place, and then try to unpack this, and then deal with it then, right? But then what happens is that sometimes that, life happens, right? And then you forget to go back to your safe place and unpack this stuff and the safe things. And that's when these things start to accumulate, right? Or then sometimes things happen before you even get to deal with that. And it's
I
a
know what you're saying.
constant backlog. It's a constant backlog of things that you're trying to deal with. And like I know that something's had to happen with my wife. Like we something happens, right? And I'm trying to deal with it and I don't finally process it because I keep bring up these negative emotions. I can't separate it yet, right? And then something else happens, and then I'm like, yeah, well, this happened, and then like 2 weeks ago, remember when you did this, and she's like, well, why didn't you tell me then? Because I couldn't deal with it then. Like I didn't feel like so. You've been dealing with this holding on for 2 weeks, and I'm thinking that everything is cool, and you haven't unpacked this. And I'm like, I got busy with life, like you know what I mean. But we need to do that because again, then that happens, right? I turn around and snapping at her or doing something or taking something out on her that's been built up, that's been building up that I didn't deal with in an appropriate time and in a manner.
and that's why I always call loneliness and being alone two different things. Because like I know both very well, being an introvert, but there's something energetic about being alone. If you don't have the depression of loneliness tied to it,
It'd be liberating.
um, it's it's for some reason the things in there is so much more clear when there's not static people around. People that actually already integrated themselves in, but we don't know how to make space for this without it. You know what I mean? It has to be a lot of space making for the mind because there's so many things that go with it. And that's the strongest thing that I've used is like how this thing fires stuff off. It may be weird, it may be rewired to a certain level, but there's actually emotional activity happening in there that wasn't happening before. So there is a neural reprogramming thing that's possible. It's just there's just no book on it for the whole of people. It's really about people's nature.
Hmm.
You being a oriented person, you talking to people, that kind of thing, those things will probably empower you. And being alone will probably end up making you feel like a little bit more drabby. Like just it's certain natures have to go about it a certain way. Somebody like me that lives in stillness now and almost forces himself to, I have to force myself to get up and walk just to do it. Just to make sure I do it. Maybe I'll do a video talking about, materialism or something like that while I'm at it. But let's believe, like, I'm going to find an airy way of getting these feelings to run through, which is movement. Each element has their own way of handling things.
Yeah, yeah.
Air people just need air people. Like Aquarius, Geminis, and they need to be doing something. They need to be doing something because of the quick mind. You know what I mean? And so everybody has their own way of doing
Yeah.
it. It's just
No, that's what everybody said too. Like I keep myself constantly busy, constantly busy. Like I don't really take a lot of downtime. Like again, I wake up in the morning super early. I'm getting the kids ready for school. Then I start my shift for work, and and even when I'm doing my shift at work, sometimes like I'm doing, sending out invoices for my t-shirt business. You know what I mean? Like you're doing this, or like sending an email for somebody from my podcast, or doing that. You know what I mean? And it's just constantly doing something. However, right? What I do enjoy, like I said, like like right now, like when everybody goes to bed and go to sleep sometimes and take this more for myself, or I'll stay in the shower for like an hour and stuff. It's just myself, it's just me. When all the noise is down and I need to learn to um take care of myself because I wasn't doing that before. I'm always like my wife was the one who forced me to do that, right? Like I'm spreading myself super thin and helping out and people call me up and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going, you know what I mean? To the point where I was literally burnt out all the time. And I'm in the background, I'm like, why am I always so burnt out? Like I don't understand. Like I don't have, because I thinking that I'm doing that stuff for me, but I'm not. I'm really not. Like I'm not. None of that is for me. You know what I mean? Like none of it was for me. I thought it was. I trained myself to do that, but none of it was for me. But she
yeah.
helped me realize that, and now on my piece, like what, that I know I need to learn where to set my limitations and not to overextend myself because now I have other people relying on me that really need me, and I need to be at my full self as much as possible. So,
Time to be
those are
selfish. Time to
yeah,
really learn about. See, that's my toxic. My toxic trait as a Scorpio is selfish. And like, there wasn't a family member that didn't call me selfish when I was young. I don't know why. I was the firstborn. I didn't know how to be, so they just called me that. And and I realized that they were wrong. That I was supposed to be selfish, just not as a child. Like I have to be more selfish now more than ever. And it's like stay in the shower an extra hour or two or whatever. Like just that low frequency of water falling will bring down everything. Water is very powerful, and it's it's the source. Like it's basically the source. So it's
absolutely.
just a matter of nature. Um, you know, uh, being content. I haven't seen much of that. Like people just aren't happy with themselves, and it's. I just wish I can do things about. You know what I mean? But we're just stuck with Facebook and podcast basically for now until something changes.
Yeah, you
You
know
know?
what it is. And you know, we got to use it to our advantage, right? Like as we see, if there's the pros and cons, right? If you're not using it for good, it's being used for evil, right? You
Yeah,
know, we can see that too. That it's just as easily being able to pump, um, these senses of what we call beauty or what is supposed to be like cool or what is supposed to be the norm, and all those things. And so, if there aren't people who are trying to, and we know it, right? Like negativity always is going to spread a lot faster than positivity. But the more people that we have that are trying to do positive things, like me and like myself and you, spreading that word and having these conversations and really just doing these collaborations, right? Because that's what I want it to become. As I talk with you more and more, like I said, I have another thing that I want to do, like with Fab, where it's just about guys getting together and talking about different things. And I know that with what you've gone through in your time. I have another friend of mine, Dominique Lewis. He's also was in the Air Force and had some time there too, and went to the things. And I think we would have a great group conversation that will go on about whatever, right? And just whatever topic that comes on, and really create that free space to be able to talk, right? Because like you said, I know like out there in Nevada, and you see these guys walking around, right? Aimlessly, or even just in general, or just seeing friends or social media, people just being aimless because I think the number one reason is they don't know that they can talk to somebody, right? They don't know that it's okay to do that, right? If it's been shunned for so long that you need to deal with this and man up and talk about it by yourself. But no, dude, like as we see, look, I've never met you a day in my life, and look how much we have in common. And we were able to
yeah,
discover that within like an hour and a half. We're not different from anybody else, you know?
not that far. Like I like to think we're complex as people, but we have a lot of layers of the same stuff.
Yeah,
That's really
Well, we know what it is, and when it comes to this, is that um, and we keep trying to wrap it up and we keep going down these different topics, but it's all great, right? Like as long as you're cool with it, I'm cool with it, right? But I say this all the time, right? Like me and my sister, right? We grew up in a house. People love drinking. It's parties all the time, like families and get together, like getting drunk and stuff like that. Seeing the exact same thing in the exact same household, right? Now, fast forward to us as adults, right? And again, not downplaying anything like that. My sister likes to drink. They go out drink on the weekends, they beers, Friday, Saturday nights, have a good time. That's how they unwind because that's what we saw growing up, right? And then that's that. And again, no shame in what I mean, like no shame in that. Me on the other side, right? Growing up and seeing that, I don't like to drink. I associate like I remember like the drinking leading to the negatives, the fights, like the knives being pulled out, people getting punched in the face, the bottles being busted on people's heads, me being in my room holding the door, hoping nobody come up here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is for me. And even though we grew up in the exact same, we processes those things completely different. Right. So, like that's where I think where it comes to complexity. Like even though like again, we can have 10 people go through the exact same scenario and each one of them are gonna relate to that situation completely different. Right. But as long as we have those common, like you said, we can talk, we learn from each other, right? We can explain and have a better understanding and kind of relate. And again, ultimately again realize that we're really not that different, you know. And that's what, like I said, I want to sit down and talk with this guy and really let them know, like, hey guys, we got to go out there. Like when I was going through that depression and stuff, that year my son was born at the pool company and everything, what really was my saving grace, man, was a friend of mine. We weren't really like all that real tight growing up in high school and stuff like that or anything, but we were cool and acquaintances and stuff like, reached out to me and I was like, yeah, I just need to vent. I was like, I told him like I'm going through, I'm depressed. And he's like, yeah, man, I've been battling depression too for some word. Like, why? Well, you work and your fam. Me too. Like, man, and when your wife says, it got so bad. Like, I was talking to him so bad that like again, me and my wife was. She's like, who are you texting all the time? Like, we're together and you're on your phone, like, because it was my my escape. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm talking to a guy who's going through something I'm going through. Like, I've never seen, and I'm having, and we're able to relate, and it's helping me realize that it's not just me. It's not a bad thing, and I can, and it helped. But it was just that being able to. have a conversation with somebody. Just say, "Hey, what's going on?" And that's all it took. Like even like I wouldn't text him, and he knew that I was going through some depression. If he didn't hear from me for like a day or two, "Hey, how you doing, man? You all right? You good?" "Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm just going through the, you know what I mean?" And just be able to, and that's all it took. "Hey, are you okay?" You know what I mean? He didn't give me no answers. He didn't give me the magic bullet. He didn't say this is how it's going to resolve your problems. All he said was, "How you doing?" and listened, and that was it. And it meant the world.
Man, I don't know if I could do that. Like, be the person that somebody comes to just to find out how they're doing. I don't know. There's got to be a whole process for me, but that is the most wholesome way of the interaction is just peering inside, like asking about what's in there. That's really what it's about.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
even
and
it's just that, like I mean, guys just want to know that they're safe. Like and I kind of like experienced that with my brother-in-law, right? Like he was living with us for a very long time, and there's times that he'd be out with his friends and be mad late, right? And me as a parent, like when I was coming home late too, I know what that's like. I didn't want my mom yelling at me or being in my throat because it wasn't gonna make me want to come home any sooner, right? Like or any of that stuff. But what I started doing was like, he was out and I didn't say anything. I would just shoot him a text. I'm like, "Hey, you good?" And he's like, "Hey, yeah, yeah, I'm fine. I'm with so and so. I'm staying over at what's his name's house and this, that, there." Cool. Didn't say anything. Left it at that. And I just kept doing that for a while. So it got to the point where, he'd be out late and I didn't even, it'd be like 1 o'clock. I wouldn't even test my phone. I get a message from like, "Hey, Fred, hey, listen, I'm out. I'm okay. I'm with so and so, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm gonna stay here and that's it. But all it just took was, "You good?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take much to get anything in a conversation. If you just put yourself out there and let people know that you're willing to listen and that you actually care, you don't need to solve any problem. You know,
yeah,
the
because I know when people like if somebody were to ask me that, like if I'm good, I'm going to have a speech. Like there's going to be a speech. There's not one. I can't just say I'm fine. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody's ever fine. It, I'm definitely not going to be the one to say I'm fine. There's always something going on inside me.
we want to convince ourselves, right, to that, right? Like it's a law of attraction. You just want everything to be fine that you just say it's fine, right? Like fake it till you make it, right? Like they say.
They say,
And I used to have this saying, right, that I tell people, right? Like I don't tell nobody my problems because 80% of the people don't care and the other 20% happy you having
yeah,
them.
basically,
you know, but
but 100 could possibly relate to it and learn something. Trust me. Like it's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just
like
just take a moment, listen.
with it still. It's weird. We'll figure this out. We'll definitely figure out what's going on with the world. Because honestly, more people need to do more talking. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Um, and find some fundamentals.
Yeah, man, just talk. Just hear each other out. Like ultimately, to like I said, part of like I said, like we all want to be part of a group. We all want to be connected, and part of that also comes with like we all also want to be heard, right? Like if we have something that's going on, we're going through something or whatever, we just want to be heard, right? And like so, it doesn't mean again, like I said, you don't have to have the answers. You don't have to solve my problems. I just need to all this stuff that I'm dealing with, I need to get off my chest. I can't carry it. I don't want to carry it. I don't need to carry it. I want it out there and I can see it and deal with it now that it's out there. But keeping it here is damaging.
Yeah.
This quote that I came in this year, which I loved, is they say, you could either say something and fuck everything up or say nothing and fuck yourself up. And I was like, you know what? I refuse to keep fucking myself up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see, like, this inside, there can't be that many realities playing at once. Out there, you can have a million different realities playing at once, and nothing seems to be too unbalanced. Like, yeah, like put that shit out there because ultimately it's gonna the universe ends up filtering and recycling that mess into other things.
Yeah. Yeah. You know
But
what? That's a beautiful way of saying it, right?
yeah, it's just hitting walls on the inside of us, and it's never any good. It's real tight in there. It's like it's tight and restricted in there. It's like none of that stuff has any room to move. It's got to move out there, man. Yeah, we can't hold it anymore.
No, absolutely not, man. As we're seeing is just it's so toxic, so damaging, everything's going on. So, you know, again, I really, really enjoyed talking to you, man. This has been absolutely amazing, man. Thank you so much for spending the time to speak with me, and
Yeah,
sharing your insight and being open. You know, I for sure this is not going to be the last time. You know, definitely want to continue to keep us in contact and talk about other things. You know,
yeah,
and anything that you're going through, man. Aside from this, like I said, you ever need somebody to talk to, listen. Yeah, your big brother's here, bro. Like I listen to anybody, we can chop it up and just you know, whatever you need, man.
yeah. Like this has been great because I don't do psychiatrists and psychologists. They can't get in there, and so it's like it has to be more, or excuse me, less authority and more mutual. And so it almost seems like podcasting is it's a means of therapeutic.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
bro. Listen, and you know, it's like me and my best friend Mitch. Like I went to see him the other day. Like we're always like yo, we're gonna finish the conversation, and we like 30 minutes later, we still going on, man. This has been absolutely amazing. But like, um, man,
yeah,
well, like when I was young, right? I always wanted to help people. Like I was always so intrigued and everything. And psychology was always one of my things that I wanted to get into. Never
love it.
really got into as much as I wanted to, but as I over the years, I've come to realize, um, and I'm gonna get comfortable saying this that I actually have a gift, right? And I need to be comfortable saying that, right? Because I have a problem with like speaking about myself, but I do have a gift, right? Like I've seen this time and time again, so many people that I just meet, and I'm able to connect and just have a genuine and really like again like. Anybody seeing this episode would think we've known each other for 40, 50 years, maybe, you know what I mean? But we haven't. But I know that I have that gift, and I love and I'm actually thinking about wanting to go back into school for psychology for actually emotional and behavioral psychology. And I think this conversation has helped me make that decision. But I don't, like I said, my style is different. Like it's not about pressuring people 'cause I never want to do that. I want to really create a space and let's just talk, man. Maybe we can connect the dots. As you've seen, hopefully I've helped you discover some things about yourself. I know you've helped me discover some things about myself in this past time. So it's been mutually beneficial for the both of us, right? Like I don't know what to expect when I sit down to have these conversations with anyone, but I'm always so intrigued and enlightened at the end just how much we have in common, how we're able to connect and how things go. So it's been an absolute honor already tonight, Anton. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and everything, man.
Thank you, and I hope to see you again. I'll probably be on the East Coast with you. You're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in Connecticut, man. Like I said, I'm up in Connecticut, so
I lived in Groton when I was really young. But yeah, I'll be over there. So definitely, like we can definitely do this again. I'm gonna be even closer. So within the next month.
hey, absolutely, man. Listen, man, the door's always open here, man. So listen, like I said, we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and talking with me. And as always, everybody, like I always say, man, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, your big brother loves you, everybody, man. Stay blessed. I'll talk to you.